Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, it's David here, and welcome back to another RPG video. Today we're going to talk Persona 3 Reload again because Tokyo Game Show gave us so much gameplay, so much new information about the game that, hey, there is still stuff to talk about. And today, I want to focus on Tartarus specifically, and has ATLUS fixed it? Has ATLUS changed enough? Because if you played the original Persona 3 and you were in the community back then, there was a lot of complaints, or there still is a lot of complaints about Tartarus and how repetitive it is, how repetitive it looks and it feels. Basically, it's the main element of complaints when it comes to original P3. So when people were talking about a potential remake for the game, myself included, people wanted changes for Tartarus. A lot of people wanted changes for Tartarus. And there's so much gameplay now that I think we're ready to answer the question, has ATLUS changed enough for Tartarus? Before we get into the video, if you're new to the channel, you want weekly content on RPGs, ATLUS, and more, make sure you subscribe, ring that notification bell as well. A quick thumbs up helps people find my channel and is a huge help. And I also made other videos about Persona 3 Reload that I think you guys could enjoy, including a video saying 10 reasons why you should be excited for Persona 3 Reload, as well as a video that goes over everything that we know so far about the game in terms of gameplay, but specifically in terms of the release itself. So DLCs, versions of the game, release dates, release information, collector's edition, platforms, and everything. So make sure you check that out. Links are in the description. And also, I will pull up some articles here of previews of Persona 3 Reload during this video, and links to those articles are also in the description. Make sure you check that out if you are interested. So let's get right into it. So the first thing that I want to say is Tartarus is the main dungeon of Persona 3. If you have not played the game before, it's basically a recreation of Gekugan High, which is the high school in Persona 3 Reload. It's a huge tower with hundreds of floors to explore, and you are going to spend hours exploring Tartarus when you get around to playing the original P3 or Reload, because it is still the Tartarus that we know and love, which is in Reload. So what I want to look at today is basically the complaints that people had before and the fixes that ATLUS gave us with Reload. So basically, the first thing that you'll see is the visuals. They are completely overhauled, right? They look great, but is it enough? You have a lot of hours that you're going to spend in that dungeon specifically, so you're going to look at that dungeon for a long time. From what we see in gameplay, it is way more fun to look at that than the original version. Obviously, it looks good and everything, but it's Tartarus. What about the structural changes? So basically, when you look at gameplay, the one thing that I noticed is before in Persona 3, there was a lot of tight corridors and enemies would just pop off in a corner and attack you. In Reload, it seems like there is more larger areas in certain sectors, which maybe you can explore. I don't really know if those are just structural changes that are not necessarily going to add anything in terms of gameplay, or if it is indeed adding stuff in terms of gameplay. But from what we've seen in the footage, it kind of just seems like it's a different structure, but it kind of plays the same way, which is a little issue here for me. The point of view itself is also different. It's kind of like over the shoulder style now, versus the view from the top that we used to have in P3. Think of it as Soul Hackers 2, basically, which is kind of like what it looks like to me in terms of point of view for P3 Reload. There's a preview here from Polygon, which they played the demo at Tokyo Game Show, and it's a demo that let them explore the first few floors of Tartarus until the first boss fight. And here's what they had to say at Polygon, quotes, "There just isn't much going on in Tartarus. It's a twisted version of a high school with a few enemy shadows lurking, and the structure was so repetitive that I got turned around fairly easily. The train battle sends my party down long straight stretches with a few visual extensions and only a couple enemies per sections. This hews very close to the original game, but is barren by modern standards. Persona 3 had less going on than later games in the series, but there is still something much more striking about that lack of substance modernized." And that is the main thing that I was scared of when I was talking about a potential P3 remake, because to me, you look at Tartarus, you look at the importance that this dungeon has with the story, and there's not much that they could do with it. Maybe they could have added puzzles here and there, but what would be the point? What would be the substance behind those? So they chose not to add them. They just fixed it visually. I think that might be a little issue here. We'll have to wait and see what others think when we get the game, when we finally get our hands on the game. Now, one thing that I mentioned in a previous video is the fatigue system. The fatigue system in Persona 3 is a mechanic that I know some people like, most people don't. It is a little crusty. Basically, sometimes when you play P3, you kind of want to rush the sections of your calendar system where you explore Tartarus. People like to rush a palace in Persona 5. Think of it that way. In Tartarus, you sometimes want to beat that section so then you can focus on your free time in the cities with social links and social interactions and everything. This is a way to play Persona games that a lot of people use. Well, in OG Persona 3, sometimes when you were exploring, randomly one of your party member would get fatigued, which would result in them losing accuracy in battle. They would miss very often. And if you don't leave Tartarus and they keep getting fatigued, at some point that character might even leave your party. And this was very frustrating, and this was a mechanic that, in my opinion, didn't bring much to the table. They tried to make this game feel realistic, and that was not required, in my opinion. It was frustrating, and that is gone from Persona 3 Reload. So at least if you want to rush your time in Tartarus and move on to something else as quickly as possible, it's something that you can do now in Reload because there is no fatigue mechanic. So make sure you have your items ready to heal manas and HP, and you will be set and good to go. Another preview that I absolutely wanted to bring up is Pushsquare's preview of Reload. Again, same demo as before with Polygon. Here's what they had to say, quote, "Exploration remains familiar and Reload faithfully recreates this wrapped version of Gekugan High, perhaps a little too closely. Mini-boss floor aside, each area only featured several enemies and the odd treasure chest, lacking that same variety Mementos holds. That said, we might actually prefer the shorter length given how vast the original Tartarus was." So, hey, apparently it's quicker to explore, shorter in terms of length in Tartarus. The number of floors is still there. To me, that's a good. Floors are quicker to explore, and I'm saying this at the end of the day, I'm a big fan of SMT, mainline SMT, and Persona, so I'm used to spending hours in dungeon. I played Etrian Odyssey, the first one this year, had a lot of fun, and sometimes you're going to spend hours on a specific floor. And what Persona 3 used to be in Tartarus was not a big issue for me. I could still find fun in this, but I have my doubts when it comes to the modern Persona audience. I don't think they're going to appreciate spending so much time in certain floors of Tartarus, because if you wanted to rush a dungeon, a palace in P5, you could do so. Kind of like the same thing for 4, but when you go back to Persona 3, it's very, very different. So, in my opinion, when you look at gameplay, you've seen it on screen. I tried to make this video gameplay focused as much as possible. There is a lot that has changed in Tartarus, but not a lot at the same time. It very much still is Tartarus. It still feels like Tartarus, and it still plays like Tartarus with a few changes. When I said before Persona 3 does not need a remake, it's because I thought ATLUS would not be able to change it in a significant way, and that's why I said a remaster is enough. Basically, that's what they did here. So sure, it looks better, it kind of sounds better as well with the new soundtrack, might be a little bit more diverse, but at the end of the day, I think the complaints that were there with the original version of P3 are still going to be there, and people who loved P3 back in the day are still going to love it. So I'm still very excited for Persona 3 Reload. Let me know what you guys think on this one. Do you think ATLUS changed enough with Tartarus and Persona 3 Reload, or are you comfortable with them keeping it kind of the same way as it used to be? Let me know by dropping a comment in the comment sections down below. I have more content coming this week, you guys. I hope you enjoy it. A thumbs up if you like the video, and once again, don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to get 20,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Very big goal, but I think it's something we can achieve with you guys' help. You have a great day, y'all. Bye.